Amalanga shona malanga ye. Amalanga shona malanga. Amalanga shona malanga ye. Amalanga shona malanga. Amalanga shona malanga ye. Amalanga shona malanga.
Orlando Pirates are through to the last 16, of the Nedbank Cup 2026. 4 goals scored, a dent is just that only 1 goal that was conceded. It was a complete whitewash, it was an expected results. And let's not fool ourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Orlando Pirates have fumbled before, playing against the small teams. But the fact that they came into this game and they scored 4 goals, that is beautiful to see. We are next, into the next round of this competition. And ladies and gentlemen, even if Orlando Pirates, were to actually go and get, an ABC Motsepe team on the next, I don't mind. In the next stage, of this competition. I'm not even apologetic about it. I want that small team. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, on the BigDaddy Football Corner. Bafethu, we are doing post-match tactical analysis between TTM and Orlando Pirates. Game played at Mabhida Stadium, where I also happened to go and watch this particular game. I was looking forward to the lineup of this particular game because I think this is the game, that I felt it's a game where you can play a couple of players, that deserves that particular chance. It's a game that I expected Tsha to start. I expected Mbule to start, Teles, Sendane, to start. I was surprised when I looked on Twitter before the game. People complained that the coach was gambling once again by playing this, by playing players that have not played that much. But these are the type of games, when you are playing lower teams, where you can, play the players that has not been given an opportunity. Where are they gonna play if they can't play in this type of games? Then we go into the first half. For me, from the very first minute, it was clear that it was men versus boys. It looked very, very easy for Orlando Pirates. It seemed like a training session, if we can be honest with ourselves. I don't think TTM posed any threat, over 90 minutes, for Orlando Pirates. The naivety, lack of experience, limited exposure to high tempo, high speed, high intensity showed. Their players, were cramping all over, even from the very, very first half, into this game. So it was very, very, interesting. One thing that was very interesting for me was in this game was the TTM goalkeeper, who was constantly playing out quickly to catch Orlando Pirates a centre back off guard, creating those 1v1 situation against those 2 centre backs, who are always positioned higher, in that particular rest defense. 7th minute, Orlando Pirates gets a penalty. The naivety I'm talking about from the TTM defenders, Aswena Police was just cutting in diagonal and he wasn't posing any real danger while fouling him inside the box. Jong, came up, calmly slotted the ball, into the net, and Orlando Pirates were 1-0 up. 16th minute, Mbatha scores a goal. Just 9 minutes after the opener, TTM defender tried to clear the ball. It's sent back into traffic. Mbatha picked up the ball, took one look and his usual long-range shot, deflected from a TTM player, went in, and I was like, damn, man, I wanted this to be, a direct goal for Mbatha. And somebody that was sitting next to said to me, had Mbatha not taken the shot, that deflection wouldn't have happened, which is very, very interesting. Special mention is Andre de Jong, a white genocide football. His profile for me is a little bit different. He gives the opponent something that Orlando Pirates doesn't have. Number one, the physicality in the final third. He's tall, he's aggressive, he's very strong in protecting the ball. Secondly, the aerial presence, the way he uses his head to set up his teammates is elite. He heads the ball, like it's getting into a cushion, He improves Orlando Pirates' ability, to win the first balls, and gives Orlando Pirates that aerial threat, in the final third. Something that we did not have, in this particular team. He's also very, very intelligent when he plays on that number 10 position. In this game, in the entire first half, he was constantly positioning himself in between the lines. For me, him, Rele, and Mbule are my favorite profiles when they play into that number 10 role. So for me, he's a profile that's welcome. His first goal at Orlando Pirates, but one thing that I want him to probably improve on is just sometimes he looks to get fouls, too often and too much, at times where he could have protected the ball, and make the pass, and he just falls and he waits for that particular, foul, and the goalkeeper the referee just looks the other way. Mpho Chabatsane, I bow, and I bow. And for those that follow me on Twitter, and all those that follow the Big Red Football Corner, especially the Facebook page, I spoke extensively on how these new Orlando Pirates signings are bringing to Orlando Pirates. And I went extensively, explained what Chabatsane, is. And I even said on Twitter, if you guys think that Mbogazi, has accurate, diagonals, you guys need to watch Chabatsane, and he just proves like an eye, guys. He was exquisite, guys. Please go and like, that Facebook page, because sometimes I go there because of the free text, go and just go on, and talk about player profiles as well as, tactical analysis of each game. Even this one, I'm going to drop, tactical analysis of this game, on the Twitter page. I'll drop a link to that page so just to see what I talked about, in this particular players, especially Chabatsane in this instance. 38th minute, TTM scores a goal. TTM scores from a free kick. Guys, you can blame Uptelezi for all you like. But that was just a brilliant strike from the number 8. Number 5, Ungobe. The power, the precision, the bend. I know. Uptelezi stood no chance, guys, in that particular goal. Second half, that 47 minutes, Udem Tangela, misses, a clear goal scoring chances, a glorious chance. To this day, I'm asking myself, how did he miss, inside the box, But for me, the build-up was very, very important. Again, it came from a throw-in, in the final third, in the attacking side of things. Remember the goal that we scored on Tuesday against Amazulu? It was also from a throw-in. It's not a coincidence. It's intentional. You can see that Orlando Pirates technical team is working, very hard in terms of the throw-ins and turning those throw-ins into attacking situation. And it is beautiful, beautiful to see. 48th minute, Tito scores a goal. But the build-up to the goal is another interesting, which is something that I really, really like. Whenever a goal to score, to just look 10 back, a couple of seconds before the goal was scored, and look how the build-up was. Again, Tito's goal was very, very beautiful. Mbatha started the move. Tito received the ball, between the first and the second line of confrontation. He plays 1-2 with Umbutuma. He received the ball again, he was already closer to the box. Finished with his weaker foot. It is a goal. For me, this Tito's performance, this cameo got Tito in the second half, it was very, very promising, and it was very, very beautiful. This is the Tito that I want. I want this Tito that is always causing havoc in the final third, receiving in between the lines, scoring and assisting. It was a very, very positive, outing from Tito. He did not even drop deeper. He was constantly in the final third, into the zone 14 where we want him, except when the game was already like 4-1, and then that's when he started dropping, as El Kabuza, El Kibele 14. 90th minute, Mbule scores a goal. He received again in between the lines. How many times have you heard me saying between the lines? Because it is very, very important. When the team consistently do that, chances and goals, they flow, they constantly flow, and Mbule's goal was just a matter of when, not if, because he has the technique, he has the power, he has the curl, he has that vicious shot, to score this type of goals on regular. He's been trying, and I've been saying the goal is going to come, and once that one comes, another one is going to come. I was very, very happy for him, to score that goal, because everybody keeps criticizing, we are lazy, but what is his GA, and today he answered, into those criticism. Final word, from me, especially from Mbutuma, as case, Orlando Pirates family, please, man, let's refrain, Orlando Pirates supporters, from putting pressure into our own players. That substituting signs, towards the end of the second half for Mbutuma, guys, it was completely unnecessary. Guys, let us support our own players. Even if when they're not their best, let us be the supporters that will lift them up, from that bad performance, and they go and score a goal or create a chance. We lift them up instead of turning against them. Guys, let us refrain, from, booing players and also making those substitution signs, even if the player is not, doing it. Let's pull them, from that slump or from that performance, instead of also adding the pressure and criticizing, those players. But one advice that I will give, Mbutuma, though, is as a number 9 and as a striker, there's no need to always want you to control the ball inside the box. Work on your first time finishing, work on the first time finishing. And if he can get that right, it will elevate his game. Mapagania, if there's anything that I've missed, please come in here, like, subscribe into the YouTube channel, but as well, go in comments and let me know if there's anything I've missed. Aye, Mapagania, aye.